For all those that are joining us, you're very welcome. This is day 4 of the International Dark Sky Week, and we have another exciting evening lined up for you, so we're really looking forward to this. As you are joining, folks, if I could draw your attention again to the Mentimeter poll that we have. It's a word cloud, and we always ask where people are from so we can gauge how far we've reached and say hello to you all. So we have menti.com, which is if you can open on your smartphone or another window with a URL and use the code 9825546. And I have posted that in the chat. I'll repost it in a second just for anyone that can't see it. Or for those of you that are familiar with QR codes, there's a QR code on the screen to access Menti as well. But I'll just pop into the chat just to see if I can find it. And chat, here we are. Okay, so there's a link I'm going to repost, and for Menti. So if you can pop in where you're from, that would be great. And as I say, just while people are joining, there's quite a few joining tonight. So we have about 80 people in already. We would like to welcome you, as I say, to International Dark Sky Week. And Mayo this year has been doing a roadshow. Normally we would be visiting each of these places physically, and this time it's got to be virtual. So we have been to Newport, the gateway to the Mayo Dark Sky Park on Monday, where we were exploring Mars with Eric Dempsey and the Newport Astronomy Club. Then we moved to Clare Island, and we looked at astrophotography and art with local astrophotographer PJ Rankin, and with Lumen from London and all over the UK, and their art installations with art and photography and the light pollution initiatives they were working on. And so yesterday we had a fabulous evening in Achill Island, virtually hosted in Achill Island with Sarah, who joins us tonight to help co-hosting. And we had Dr. Frank Prendergast give us an amazing lecture, Mountains, Mysteries and Megaliths, which is one that will stick in the memory for a long time. And we hope those of you that were there last night enjoyed it. And this evening we are moving to Ballycroy, which is the heart really of the Dark Sky Park. It's the village where the visitor centre is. And we are going to be hearing from Seamus Butler in a few minutes. So this will be our 4th stop to Ballycroy, and we are looking forward to welcoming you in person there as well when we can. So if I can draw your attention again to the menti.com, and I will stop sharing my screen and have a look at the results. Just 1 second now. Hopefully we have quite a few results. Wow, we do. So again, I think for the 4th night in a row, we have New York, strong representation there. So thank you so much for being with us every night. We have Washington, DC. We have Castlebar. We have Lancashire, Thornton, you're welcome. We have Edinburgh. We have, of course, Newport, County Mayo, hometown for me. Yay. We have Edmonds, Wisconsin, USA. We have Wexford, very welcome Wexford. We have Newfoundland, Canada, where we'll be visiting tomorrow for our Dark Sky tourism event. We have Liverpool, we have the Philippines. Gosh, we have a fantastic spread. So thank you all so much for joining us in Mayo virtually. And I will stop sharing my screen now. I'll post this up later so you can all see the spread of countries and places that we've reached tonight. But the main place that we are visiting tonight will be Ballycroy. And as I said, we will have Seamus Butler, our local host, to introduce Ballycroy to us. as if we were virtually visiting. And then we will move to our two guest speakers who I'm really, really excited will be joining us this evening. But for now, I will let Seamus introduce you to Ballycroy and then to our speakers, and we'll move on from there. And thank you again for joining us. So Seamus, over to you.
Thanks, Georgia. Welcome to Ballycroy. The map here, you can see it's north of Mulranny and east of Achill, south of Bangor. And just some facts about Ballycroy. And this is Dunagh Castle. It's a Norman castle dating to the 1100s. It was also refuge for the La Rata in Cornada, Spanish Armada vessel in 1588. The crew later embarked on a ship in Black Sod. And the majority of the people of Ballycroy are descendants of the O'Donnell clan who settled Ballycroy in the 1650s after the defeat by Cromwell. Rory O'Donnell led 2,000 people to Ballycroy. Other of the clan fled to Europe as the Wild Geese, you may have heard of them, and served as a mercenary army. Within a generation, however, trade flourished between the Ballycroy community and the extended O'Donnell family on the continent. By the 1700s, the O'Donnells owned vast tracts of land all over Mayo and moved to a new house in Newport House, as we know it. Now, to work around the harsh penal laws of the time, the main O'Donnell family changed their religion and adopted the English way of life. Neil O'Donnell even became a magistrate and a baronet. However, his children and even himself had been brought up in the Irish tradition by being fostered to an O'Donnell family in Ballycroy for varying periods of time. He had his own ship that traded as far as Cadiz in Spain, and he was celebrated for the quality of his brandy and claret. The fox was really running the hen house. The family were facing ruin after the famine, had to sell a lot of their property. This is the Rock House in Ballycroy, land built on 100 acres of garden by George Clive, who bought from the O'Donnells. George Clive was an MP and Home Office minister and a descendant of the famous Clive of India. He built the Rock House in 1854, and the Clives had an 80-year association with Ballycroy and popular landlords and popular in Ireland and England. General Clive's personal relationship with Arthur James Balfour, the Chief Secretary to Ireland, is believed to have influenced the decision to develop the Westport to Achill railway line, which is now our Greenway. This is the National Park Visitor Centre. The National Park itself is one of the largest expanses of peatland in Europe. It's a unique habitat with diverse flora and fauna. Visitor Centre opened in 2009 and has welcomed people from all over the world. In addition to the National Park and its other sites, Ballycroy has continued a healthy marine tradition, which I'm gladly involved with. It's our classroom. The West Coast, Ballycroy being typical, is well known for its spectacular scenery. This is a nice summer's day. Note the bridge. And this is the same bridge on a bad day. And just go back to that one, the difference. The International Dark Park designation has allowed us to focus on what it means to have a pristine dark sky and how to appreciate it. This is the same bridge, photo by Brian Wilson, on a, I think there was a small moon that night. Many of us attended a visitor centre, or the astronomy course in the visitor centre in 2016, hosted by the Black Rock Observatory crew. It was a real learning experience, and we were very grateful for it. It prompted us to look at things that we do. Our floating classroom for navigation became an astrophotography workshop. That's some of our practice shots. And that's Brian Wilson delivering our astrophotography course. We also looked at folklore and storytelling, that many of the stories have been lost to time and reintroduce them. And these are samples of some of our daytime and nighttime photographs. This is the daytime, nighttime, same scene. And this is showed people what you can see when the lights are turned off. See, this is the lamp column there. And this is a house, neighbour's house near me. It's my own house. And also prompted me and a few others to set up our own solar system walk. It's to a scale of 1 kilometre. It's on this small island down here. And it just encourages people to get out and walk and learn something at the same time. It's led to a whole new activity for us in the winter, and it's made us aware of light pollution and what we can do to reduce it. On a bigger scale, the road lights from Bangor to Newport have been changed to a soft, warm light rather than the harsh blue type. So we've gone from this type to this type. So these are some of the changes that have been made, and many more to come. So our guests, Anna Levin and Emma Marrington, might enlighten you on night light and why we need to talk about light. And that's it. Back to you, Georgia.
That's great. Thank you very much, Seamus. I'm just going to stop your screen share. Seamus, thanks so much for the introduction. I feel like I was in Ballycroy, and it's only down the road from us, but it's great to see the images, and no, really great introduction. Thank you. Well, I will move the spotlight on now to our first guest speaker. And this lady, Anna Levin, I've been reading her book, Incandescent. I have to say, for anyone that is interested in well, lighting and ecology, but just it's a passionate book. It's her experience of light and the impact it has. So Anna's book, Incandescent, We Need to Talk About Light, explores the impact of, yeah, great. Well, do you know what, Anna? Snap. We need to talk about light. So she explores in the book the impact of recent changes, both in the quality and quantity of artificial light, arguing that we underestimate the power and importance of light, its impact on nature, the built environment, and on human health and well-being. And it's so relevant for all of us. And I'm so happy to introduce you. Anna is an author, an editor, a journalist. She has a special interest in wildlife and people's connection to the natural world and the night sky. And on that note, may I hand over to you, and welcome to Ballycroy and Mayo Dark Skies.
Thanks very much. It's lovely to be here. I'm thrilled to be in Mayo, even virtually. I was telling Georgia during the sound check that we'd actually planned a holiday for real in the west of Ireland this year, because I met my husband there when we both lived in Galway 30 years ago, would you believe? And I chatted him up because he had a motorbike, and I used to love doing trips out to Connemara and Mayo. And one time we went out to Achill Island and wild camped there, and the mist came rolling in from the sea, and we lost the tent. And we ended up going to a B&B for the night because we couldn't find the tent. But what really sticks with me from that trip is waking up in the morning and opening the curtains. The mist had gone, there was our tent, and there was the most amazing view. I mean, some of those fantastic views like Seamus has been showing us really gave me a wow, gave me a gasp that morning that stayed with. And I want you all just to think for a moment of one of those views that makes you gasp, you know, and you actually sort of affects you physically, and you go, when you see something, it could be something you've seen on holiday or just part of your daily life, that if you just hold in your mind for a moment, your gasp view that gives you that upbeat. And I want you to imagine that I'm going to build a great building in front of it, or a big ugly monument, and it obscures almost all of the view, maybe gives you a tiny little corner, but otherwise it's pretty much gone. You know, how would you feel about that? Would you protest? Would you try and do something about it? Because of course there is a view so beautiful that it's been making people gasp since the beginning of time, and buildings, you know, weaving stories and myths and dreams all around it. And it's the birthright of every person, and indeed every creature on earth. And those in Ballycroy are lucky enough to enjoy it, but most of humanity aren't. And it is, of course, the night sky. And I think, when we start to think about the night sky as our scenery, as our view, we realize how much we've lost. And probably you can all think of a gasp moment again when you've looked up at the stars, or the northern lights, or this is Dark Sky Week. My computer wouldn't put the thing up behind me, but sometimes I think dark sky is a bit of a misnomer, because I think the more time I spend in what we call dark skies, the more I realize how undark they are and how much light is up there. I think my last gasp moment, I was camping in Pitlochry in Scotland, and I just looked up and I was like, when did there get to be so many stars? Where did they come from? It wasn't the darkness. It was the light, the natural light of the sky, and it is exquisitely beautiful. And we have built a bloody big tower block slap bang in front of it for almost everybody. And that obstruction is, of course, light pollution, which is both direct artificial light and sky glow that forms a sort of luminous fog around us. And with it, we've obliterated darkness for so much of the world, and the consequences of that are profound at every single level. And there hasn't been enough protest. I think it's creeping up on us. We almost forgot the stars and the importance of it and the consequences of that separation. So I'm especially thrilled to be here tonight, because I feel this event and this whole week around the world is part of this awakening and something stirring and a real appreciation of the darkness and the importance of the night sky. Because my talk, as my book is, we need to talk about light, but of course you can't talk about light without talking about darkness. And I'm really, I'm talking about darkness just as much, and this sense of it as something endangered that we need to protect. And much like many endangered species, we come to realize how precious it is now that we're facing losing it. And it can be hard to find. When my little sister grew up in London, and she came to visit us in Scotland, and we picked her up at the station, and she was staring out the window with just a look of bewilderment on her face. And I realized she grew up in London, they'd holidayed in cities. She'd never seen the dark. That wasn't something that she'd experienced. She didn't know what it was. And I began to, crave darkness and really seek it out, not just the beautiful stuff of the stars and the northern lights, but actual darkness itself, a sort of the texture of it and the peace of it. There's something that you can't get from something else, which is kind of ironic, because I've been scared of the dark nearly all my life. I'll confess to that. I grew up in a village where it was really dark, and I'd walk my dog right to the end of the streetlights, and I'd kind of peer into it and look at this thing, darkness, and I wasn't going there. I didn't dare go any further. And I remember going to university in Edinburgh, and there was a streetlight right outside my bedroom window, actually sort of attached to the wall. And I remember looking around the flat and just feeling relief and joy, because this light was there, so I would never have to deal with darkness. So what changed? Well, light itself changed. I mean, artificial light has changed fundamentally, and we hear a lot about the rise of the exponential rise in the quantity of artificial light all over the world. But what we hear less about is actually how much the quality of light has changed, especially in recent decades. The light that we are dealing with today in our street lights, in our car headlights, in torches and bike lights is not the same stuff as the firelight and the sunlight that we evolved with. And it's not the same stuff as the incandescent light that people of my age grew up with. And that change in light affected my life profoundly, changed my life, changed my attitude to light and dark, right and wrong, left and right, an awful lot more besides. And it took me on a very strange journey. And that's the journey that I tell in this book, Incandescent. Obviously, I've got to cut a very long story short to share it with you today. But what I wanted to share was this sense I had when I came to sort of look at it as a book of something moving outwards in concentric circles and getting bigger and bigger. It started with me in my little life, just taking the kids to school, living on a hill in Scotland. I started feeling very unwell when I encountered the curly light bulbs. Do you remember the CFL ones that first came in when incandescent light bulbs were banned? And I went to the doctor and she said, well, we don't really know because the lights are very new. We don't really know what effect they have. But like these lights were increasingly everywhere, and life got very difficult because it was hard to explain to friends and family why I couldn't just meet them in a pub or go to a restaurant. I had to be always checking light bulbs first, and of course everyone thought I was mad. So I started writing a blog just to explain to my friends and family, what was going on. I got bored of trying to explain it, really. I didn't anticipate what would happen next, which was that people all over the world somehow found my blog and started writing to me and started sharing stories that really shocked me. So it turned out that people all over the world were having problems with not just CFLs, but the newer generation of lighting, the LEDs that were coming in. And some were far worse than me. Some were experiencing intense pain and fits, collapsing, vomiting. And in fact, one of the very first people who wrote to me was from the west of Ireland. And she was unable to, go out into her garden for seconds once the new streetlights came. And people were unable to access employment, education, medical care, transport. It was a lockdown long before lockdown. People couldn't visit other people in their houses, and nobody wanted to know because these lights were perceived as good and green. And if you had a problem with them, must be something wrong with you. But this sense, it started moving bigger. There was me, and I thought, okay, this is happening all over the world. Something's going on. So I went back to the doctor, and they sent me to a dermatologist and a neurologist and a every ologist they could think of. And I kept getting the same answer, which was that we don't know, these lights are new. But they did say they've been having inquiries all over the world. And there the story might have ended if it wasn't for a niggle, when something just doesn't sit right. And I thought, surely we should have found out a bit more about this stuff before we banned one form of lighting and enforced another. And what is going on, and who else is affected by this? What has changed? What's different in the lights? And for that, I had to sort of think, well, what is light? And me and physics had parted company long ago as a schoolgirl, and I didn't have much grasp of even the very basics. But somehow I took myself to Cambridge University Physics Department and found a very friendly astrophysicist and sat him down in the pub and bought him a pint. And he gave me some physics lessons, a very crash course. We talked about quantum physics and the electromagnetic spectrum and color temperature and frequency and all this new language. And I'll spare you all of that because I'm probably not the best person to explain it. But what it boils down to is two things. There's one that he said, we don't really understand what light is. And that shocked me because I thought they knew everything and I would just ask questions and get answers. And also, it's complicated. Light is intensely complicated and multifaceted. So whatever aspect of it that you measure, you're missing something else. You can't just use some scale or measurement. So whenever we actually talk about light, and especially comparing lights, we're not comparing everything because it is incredibly complicated stuff. So I started researching online. I found a lot of senior medics very concerned. I started doing interviews, going to conferences. I went to a dark sky conference, which was wonderful. And I met a neuroscientist there who showed a picture of a smashed clock that has stayed in my head ever since. And she said that, we hear a lot about the circadian rhythm at the moment, but that's not just sleeping and waking. That process, which is governed by light, affects every physiological process in your body, from blood sugar to bowel movement. So we're talking about cell renewal, psychology, everything your body does pretty much is set by light. And the implications of that broken clock, involve obesity, diabetes, cancer, a lot of the really major issues of our time. And the bit of light that's most disruptive and most powerful in setting that is a particular frequency of blue light that's particularly prominent in the new form of lighting, and especially the first wave of LED lights that came along, the very bright ones and the very blue ones. They were the cheapest and the quickest that were out there. So again, it got bigger. It wasn't just me, and it wasn't just a group of weirdos around the world that had some sort of freaky problem. Every person, every cell in our bodies is actually affected by light. And at the same conference, I found myself at breakfast sitting by a marine biologist. And I said words to the effect of, what are you doing here? Because it wasn't there was astronomers and artists and dark sky rangers, and I wasn't really expecting to meet someone like that. And he said, but light pollution has a huge effect on the marine environment, right into the deep sea, not just at the coast, and the cascading effect on ecosystems. So, when something's affected at the coast, that can go right the way through the ocean. And he said that the marine environment was affected not just by the quantity of artificial light that's grown so much over the last 100 years, but profoundly affected by the quality changes of the last 10 or 20 years. His work at the time was on dog whelks at the coast, and he said they were getting metabolically stressed by very bright LED streetlights. I think they were 4,000 K, if I remember right. And I thought, you and me both, little dog whelks. And the penny dropped a bit. It was the first time I realized, yes, of course, how could it be otherwise? All these things I've been learning about, from eyes and brains and cells and endocrine systems, we share these things with the rest of the living world. And if people, certain people were getting problems from a certain frequency of light, of course that was going to be affecting other things as well. And realized this wasn't just, it got bigger. This was actually about the whole of the natural world. So I'd like to read just a little bit from the book about that realization that I had. This is from chapter 5, in the natural world. Light wakes the world gently at this latitude. The sky softens as it ever so slowly brightens, easing from a rich deep blue into a curious green. The stars dim gradually, like music faded so skillfully that you feel a pang for its passing, but listen all the more attentively as it quietens. Back home, I'm not one for prizing my sleepy body from my quilt a moment before I must, and so the magic of dawn too often passes me by. But here in Glen Affric, I wake in the darkness, and momentarily disorientated, I reach to feel for the camper van curtains, and then I gasp out loud at the clarity and density of the stars. I'm not used to real dark anymore. The sky around my home on a slope of central Scotland is stained from the lights of industry, so the darkness that greeted me when I arrived at this Highland Loch last night was unnerving, but welcoming too. I remembered how real dark is described as velvet. There is that texture to it, soft and alluring. More vocabulary takes on refreshed meaning. A pristine sky, yes, it's clean, as if the stars have been polished. And gaze. There's a sense of awe enshrined in the language. We watch birds and even whales, but we gaze at stars. I get up and venture into the darkness, step by step, the silhouettes of trees splintering the star-bright sky. And that's when daylight starts to edge a dimmer switch, ever so slightly, until the colours intensify in the autumn-tinged landscape around me. Close by, the feathery bracken at my feet is glowing and backlit. Ha! This trip was supposed to be a break from my light obsession, but here in this enchanted place, I can feel the light addressing me from all around. Far from having a break, I'm feeling more aware than ever of the interplay between light and life. It's telling me a much bigger story. Once upon a time, it's saying, there were dark nights and light days. And that once upon a time lasted a very long time, a good 3 billion years. And life on Earth emerged, following a constant rhythm, tapping its collective toes to a steady beat. Dawn, day, dusk, night. Dawn, day, dusk, night. Climates changed, continents drifted, mountains rose and oceans swirled, and still nature kept the beat. Dawn, day, dusk, night, on and on and on. And pretty much every living thing developed and adapted to this rhythm. If all the world's a stage, the show is an elaborate dance created by evolution, the flamboyant choreographer, in close collaboration with the cosmos as a lighting designer. They're an inseparable partnership. Every footstep of the dance takes its cue from the changing light. It's performed by an astonishing cast of creatures, all flying, swimming, hiding, hunting, resting, growing and blossoming to the beat with breathtaking synchronicity. They're all poised for their prompts. Flowers ready to open their petals, frogs to croak a love song, birds to gather and fly south. Migration, predation, pollination, reproduction, all respond to the intensity of the light. And these cues come from the subtle lights of the night as well as the sun in the day. Whenever I talk about light, I'm also talking about darkness. They're part of the same whole, and I feel we're inclined to underestimate the importance of darkness just as much as we do light. There's a glib presumption that the world goes to sleep at night because we do. Much of life on Earth is nocturnal, and darkness is essential, not just for the sleep and health and well-being of diurnal creatures, but for the rest of life that needs the dark to live and thrive, to travel and hunt and hide in. Dawn and dusk are when we may notice the light change and feel its impact, but the colour and the quality of natural light is changing constantly throughout the day. The shifts from blue morning to red evening are subtle and often beyond our awareness, but they're not beyond our perception. The cues from the lighting designer to the cast keep coming. The message is changing. Rest now, start to dig, hide, become sexually aroused. The performers respond at every level, within the very cells of individual dancers, in their presence on the stage, and in the twists and the turns of the drama and interaction between different species. And so, after billions of years of this constant rhythm, we have abruptly interrupted one of the most fundamental cues that programs the natural world. What have we done to the dance? And the answer, of course, is utter chaos. That broken clock affects every aspect of the living world and every aspect of our lives. And ecologists describe light pollution as significant as climate change in terms of the disruption of the natural world. And it's not like these issues are competing, they augment each other. But we hear so much about climate change and we don't hear enough about light pollution and the problems with light of breaking the clock, really, that beats in the natural world. Light is time. Out there in the trees and the flowers, just as it is in our brains and bodies. And everything starts to unravel when you start to mess with it. So here's the irony, light has gone wrong, really wrong, and in two separate but intertwined ways, and one that there's just way too much of it. And the other is that the new light that we've brought into the world is normally too bright and too blue. And the irony of that is that the new generation of lighting was supposed to be about helping climate change and using less energy. But somehow we've caused an environmental problem in itself in terms of there's problems with what the lighting's made from, the perception of it, that because it's seen as green and cheap, we'll have more of it. And actually light pollution has increased in the era of LEDs, and there's more and more lights in all sorts of places that we didn't have it. So one problem is kind of easily solved in that, compared to so many environmental problems, you can solve a lot of light pollution by switching the damn things off. There was an article in the Irish Times last week, it said the solutions are simple. In some ways they are. The issues of quality are far more complex. There's been a lot of improvements in LED lighting, massive improvements, and people are very excited about them being the solution for dark skies and for environmental concerns. I'm still concerned that there's a human rights issue that isn't being addressed. The inconvenient truth is that there are people that can't tolerate LED lighting. And if this is going to be the form of light we have in the world, we need to see how are these people going to live their lives and light their homes and access the streets. So I founded a charity, Light Aware, which advocates for people that are struggling with new forms of light. And the mess we're in, it's happened for so many reasons, and some of them is good intentions. Some of it's greed, some of it's warped values and a perceived need that we need this thing called the 24-hour economy, and we need to be able to shop at every time and work through the night. There's perceptions of security and safety. But ultimately, I think it's happened because we grossly underestimate the power and importance of light and dark, and how much that affects everything. When the book came out, I got interviewed by a journalist from the Times, and he said, ask me a question that almost everyone asks me, which is, what's it called, this thing you have? Is it an illness? Is it hereditary? Is it contagious? Does it have a name? And I say, well, it doesn't really, because some people are just more sensitive to certain forms of light, so they just call it light sensitive. So yeah, I'm light sensitive, and so are you, all 133 of you that are here, just like the rest of life on Earth. We all are. Thank you.
Well, Anna, hearing you read your own words there is so powerful, and thank you. That was gorgeous and thought-provoking, and I have all sorts of thoughts bubbling away of the things that you've said there, and how we can deal with it. And I just hope that somewhere in the audience and the attendees that we have here and the reach that we will have, that the right voices can, the right ears are listening to your voice there, because you've said it so perfectly. And I might just have a quick look. There's lots of chat. We won't go through them all now, but what we might do is just take a few quick questions, if that's okay. Mm-hmm. Then we will move to Emma, and then afterwards we will take some questions for both of you, because I think your talks are so complementary, with you stating the issue and the impact it has on us and on you. And Emma then has been working on some solutions and actions as a result. So if you just bear with me a moment to have a quick scan of the chat, because I think we're going to get some good book orders. By the way, I see there's a few people looking for the name of the book, and we had a comment from Frank Prendergast, who spoke so wonderfully last night for us. Every November, the red-winged thrush migrates down our east coast from the far north. This happens only in the dark. They can be heard calling overhead. So thanks, Frank, for that. We have lovely comments, Therese Ruan, lovely writing and reading. Definitely ordering the book. That was lovely hearing you read, Anna. Hauntingly beautiful. And Jed was just saying that there was the researcher that you mentioned, was it Annette Allen? Yes. From Scotland, yeah, from the Scottish Dark Sky Conference. So very complimentary. We'll save some of those comments. I'll just go to the questions, folks. So we have a question from Fiona Hopkins. Anna, did you get any specific understanding of your health issue? I think you might just touched on that just towards the end. So
no, the short answer is no.
Light sensitive. Yeah.
Yeah. We found so many people have problems with different types of the new forms of lighting, and all sorts of sensitivities. Can be to flicker, it can be to the colour spectrum, it can be to the intensity. Light is complicated stuff, and no, I never got an answer.
I think light sensitive sums it up though for many of us. We have another question, a lady that logged in a little late, but she's got the name of your book now. She said she's had long arguments with electricians rewiring her cottage. He insisted on LEDs in several areas. I know how they affect me and I feel very unhappy. How do we get these issues raised with the trades, with councils responsible for street lighting and public sector housing? I'm not sure where you are, Marie, but we can, maybe Anna, if you have a point on that, and we can also take that later.
I wish I had an answer to that, and it's really we had a light-aware meeting today, actually, talking about this very issue, that the councils and the street lighting engineers, and they have no idea of the significance of what they're changing. If you measure lumens or watts or something about light, well, that's an equivalent of that, but it's actually fundamentally different stuff, and it affects people different ways. And that's no criticism of the councils or the street lighting engineers. That none of us, I wouldn't have had a clue if I hadn't had to find out more about it. It's not widely understood. It's not widely understood by the legislators and the politicians that are making the laws either. So I think we just need to raise a lot of awareness that light is more than we think it is. It's profoundly powerful, dangerous and beautiful and wonderful stuff.
I think that's the point, that a lot of us are stumbling across this accidentally. It's not something that we can tangibly recognize the way they can with some other pollutants. So that's part of the problem with the education. Just one or two more, and we will come back to questions, but I see Jack Ellerby in the UK, who does a lot of work for Dark Skies and Lighting.
Hi, Jack.
Jack has said, Anna, the IDA's new principle recommends 2700 to 2200 Kelvins colour temperature. Do you feel that's right?
Oh, it's a really hard question. There's a lot of enthusiasm among Dark Skies people for the newer LED lighting, which can be very controlled, different colours can be softened. I wish I could sort of cheer for it too, and I wish I could share that enthusiasm. my problem, as I say, is that I'm good with it myself individually, but I know there are too many people in the world that are struggling with LEDs per se at the moment. I'm not saying that they won't be developed that are okay, but until these lights are tested on people that have ill effects from LEDs, I can't, for me, I'm not morally able to say, yeah, that's fine, it's fine by me, because I know that people aren't able to leave their homes and are taping their windows up and they're not able to get to work. And so for me personally, I don't think LED is ready to be streetlights yet, even though that's what we're getting through the whole planet.
Okay, that's fair comment. Okay, well, we might just leave it there for now on the questions, Anna, and thank you again, and we will come back to you at the end. And folks, those of you who put questions in, we're not ignoring you, we'll come back, but we'll move on with the evening so far. So thanks again, Anna. I'm going to move the camera over just 1 second. So I'm just going to bring our next speaker in. And this is Emma Marrington. And Emma, you're very welcome to Ballycroy virtually and to Mayo. And we hope we'll see you in person. So Emma has been working for a long time for the Campaign to Protect Rural England, the CPRE, who do fantastic work in England. She is one of the longest standing members of staff there, has worked there since 2005 on a range of issues over the years, with several reports, which I have to say have been so helpful to us here. Your reports called Night Blight, which I know you're going to talk about, and Shedding Light, which surveyed local authorities and around the UK, and it came out with some guiding principles, which we've actually adopted into the Mayo manifesto on recommendations that we have for lighting in public arena. So thank you, Emma, for your work. And I know just recently, you've been so busy recently with the Counting Stars campaign, which has been tremendously successful. And I know you have the results from that to tell us a little bit more about. So I think without further ado, I will hand straight over to you, Emma, and just to say you're very welcome and thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you. And like everybody else, I want to come over and see Ballycroy, see County Mayo and the dark skies there with all the wonderful images at the start showing us. So yeah, thank you for inviting CPRE to speak at this event. So as you know, I'm Emma Marrington. I've been at CPRE for a number of years and lead our work on landscape, including, importantly for tonight, CPRE's campaign on dark skies and including dark landscapes as well, the experience from the ground, and solutions to help combat light pollution. So CPRE is a countryside charity that campaigns to promote, enhance, protect the countryside for everyone's benefit wherever they live. We focus largely on England, and there's a network of CPRE groups in all English counties, including, as you mentioned there, Jack from Friends of the Lake District, doing excellent work there. And they work on a range of issues, including tackling light pollution and protecting dark skies. You may have seen earlier this week that we launched, earlier this year, that we ran the star count that you mentioned in February. It's a great spot of citizen science. So we're asking people to count the number of stars they can see in the Orion constellation. So I'm sure all of you are familiar with the Orion constellation, the 4 corner stars forming the rectangle, and counting the number of stars you can see within that constellation. And this year, astoundingly, I think probably lockdown might have helped with people being at home, being able to do the star counts from home. We had almost 8,000 star counts submitted, which is 3 times as many as last year. So that's amazing. So thank you to everyone who took part, who's in this event now. And we published the results a couple of days ago, obviously to mark International Dark Skies Week. And the results revealed that across the UK, 51% of people taking part counted 10 or fewer stars. So that indicates levels of severe light pollution hindering their views of the night sky. And that compares, it's really bad, of course, about half of people not having a great view of the stars, but that compares to 61% last year. So it's interesting having that 10% difference, because we think, well, what is the only thing that's happened that could have had an impact on that? Well, the lockdowns, obviously we've all been changing our behaviours, and perhaps office lighting hasn't been on so much. Business lighting may not have been on so much. So that could have been contributing towards the sort of ambient levels of light pollution. So we think that's what's been impacting it. But there is local variation. So, for example, Devon, Northumberland, they've got, it's much lower. So you have, darker skies in those areas. But Greater London, so I'm in Southwest London, for example, there's 75% of people, so 10 stars or fewer. So that compares to 51% nationwide. And I counted 9 myself this year, which was the most I've ever counted from a bedroom window, and I was very happy. I thought, oh, okay, that's 2 more than last year. So, that was something. But I know that's compared to people who have, really great views of the night sky, that's not great either. So, and this year, 5% of people who took part reported counting more than 30 stars. That indicates truly dark skies, and we've not had that since 2013, that particular 5%. So that's still really good as well. And we've created an interactive star count map, which I'll show you now. So just give me a moment and I will screen share that. Let me see. Right, so can I have some thumbs up from some people? Can you see the map? Yep, good. There you are. So this is the interactive map that we worked with consultants called LUC. They're fantastic. Done a lot of mapping work for us. And they created this interactive map of the nation's views of the night sky. So all of the star counts we have submitted. We've had many. We've had some from as far as America. We've had some star counts that should come up on the map in a moment. I know they were mapped. So there's star counts from as far away as Russia. I think we've got one. We've got a lot of star counts, obviously based in the UK as well. And so what you can do with this map, you can see you moving it, you can zoom into a location. We divided, so within this star count, there are 7 bands, if you like. You can see just on the left there. And so we divided, analysed star counts by that way. So you can see the red colours where there's most severe light pollution. And of course, the blues and the purples are where you can count, have a very good count of the stars as well. And you can, for England, because CPRE, we do largely focus on England, although of course with the star count, it's getting everybody involved, thinking about, oh, I can't see so many stars. Let's think about light pollution. This is interesting. So for a lot of people, it might be their first opportunity to look up and think, oh, I assumed I could have a better view. And so you can switch on areas like AONBs, national parks, and also council boundaries as well for England. And so you can see there, you can zoom in and think, okay, that's Stratford and Avon, these are star counts in this area. So it means that we can use the star counts to identify where people's views are being affected by light pollution, and where they've got really good dark skies can be protected and enhanced as well. So I'll stop sharing that. Stop share, that worked. And yeah, so I was going to say also that we all know that light pollution doesn't stop at boundaries. So it can travel from miles around from a source. If you've got an individual security light or maybe a farm building in the middle of a rural area, that's going to have a real impact on the light levels in that area. And so it doesn't respect boundaries. It goes from miles around and blurs what's the difference between the distinction between urban and rural areas as well. And we think at CPRE there's an urgent need to protect and enhance our existing dark skies and to take holistic action both nationally and locally to reduce light pollution. And it's not only to improve people's views of the night sky wherever they live, it's, as Anna was saying, it's part of all of our heritage. But tackling light pollution will also help us tackle the climate emergency. For example, in the Shedding Light report that Georgia mentioned earlier, we found that local authorities, councils, it can account for up to 30% of a council's carbon emissions. And of course, it impacts people, as Anna was describing. So we all know not to look at your mobile phone late at night because of the blue light that's coming at you because your brain's active. And of course, if you've got that light shining into your home as well, into your bedroom potentially, that also has that impact on your sleep patterns too. And for wildlife. I've certainly seen, trees lit up with a street light poking in, robins singing away in the evening, because it has that disorientating effects. And you should say that day-night rhythm that we've had for millennia has been affected by the levels of light. And we'd like to see national government taking action to tackle light pollution. Some of you will have seen that the Your Party Parliamentary Group for Dark Skies published a 10-point plan for government action last December that we supported as CPRE. And they recommended changes to planning and standards for lighting, and even appointing a Minister for Dark Skies, which I thought was very Harry Potter-esque, but that's a real aspiration. It will take action at all levels, so nationally, locally, councils, businesses, infrastructure such as road lighting, but also individually. So, I know I've got a neighbour nearby who's got a really bad security light outside. They put it on, it literally like shines a light into my living room. You could watch a film on it almost, it's that bright. And, so if you've got a neighbour who's got a security light outside, or if, for example, you've got your light outside yourself, just put it on when you actually need it instead of it being shining all over the place. So we can all do something about light pollution. And you mentioned also, Georgia, about our nightlight mapping of Britain's night skies. And I know I'm advocating creative for County Mayo as well, more recently. Take some water, sorry. Our 2016 maps, they're based on satellite data that was captured throughout at 1:30 in the morning throughout September 2015. So it's really interesting. It's an interactive map of Britain, but it shows the amount of light spilling up into the night sky at 1:30 a.m. when, yes, of course, there are people who are working, shifts as well, would need, would like some lighting to navigate back home. But it's a lot of money and energy being wasted, shine up into the night sky. And of course, that's creating like a veil of light across our view of the stars. So, yeah, very sad. But, the other thing to say is that with the nightlight mapping, so I can post a link in the chat in a moment for it, it was split into 9 different brightness categories. So depending on the amount of light shining up, the intensity of light. And so for England, we had 22% of pristine night sky, free from any light pollution. But probably unsurprisingly, people who know Scotland and Wales, England doesn't fare as well. So in Wales, you had 50% of pristine night skies and 77% in Scotland, which is amazing. So we do have some brilliant dark skies. And another thing to mention, I was reflecting on this, is that relative darkness is important too. So even in urban areas, you have like an oasis of darkness. So for me, I've got a nearby green space. We've got a bit of a tradition where we usually mince pie time, just coming up to winter, to Christmas, we take a flask, take the mince pies, go for a walk in our local green space at dusky time into the dark. You're hearing the deers barking away, you're hearing the owls hooting, you get that experience of the night and your eyes adjust. So even though it's near an urban area, within an urban area, it still has that real feeling of darkness. But then when you leave, when you get to the exit, you see all the street lights, it's overwhelming. The difference is, it always strikes me how like, whoa, how intense it is compared to the relative darkness that we've just been in. And with the International Dark Sky Association, designation of dark sky places, obviously fantastic. And, I've said we've got stunning dark skies across the UK and of course in Ireland too. I certainly, you were saying Anna about the memories of when you've seen the gasping of the dark skies. For me, that was up in, I think it was Yorkshire Dales at the Wheeldale Youth Hostel. It's since closed. But, I've taken by my mum when I was a kid. And I woke up in the night and I was like, oh my God, it's so dark. It's so dark. I grew up near Heathrow Airport, so not very dark at all. And so the difference, and I remember looking at, going to the windows, like, whoa. Just absolutely stunned at the darkness and the stars and the difference of growing up in an urban area compared to that. And so, I mean, to me, with, you know, the dark places, it feels that, you know, these places, having these designations will mean they'll be there for current and future generations to experience and enjoy. And so, you know, I'd hope that in the future, you know, experiences that I've had, that we've all had, of seeing really dark skies, are going to be there for many generations to come. So there you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma, and congratulations on the work that you are doing. I'm just looking at questions and comments coming in again, so I think what we might do is bring Anna in as well, if you don't mind. So we have a little panel. Emma, I just wanted to ask you, you mentioned the APPG, and for us here, we don't have anything. First of all, we don't have any policy, national policy. We don't have any legislation, not even the Nuisance Act and Neighbour that you have in the UK. Yes. So yeah. We have no party actually acting on our behalf for light pollution. So would you mind explaining about the APPG? And I know it's fairly recent, but just for those of us to learn a little more.
Yeah, of course. And so last January, so January 2020, the years are all blurred, haven't they, this last year? An all-party parliamentary group for the UK was set up for dark skies. And they, you know, various MPs coming together with an interest in tackling light pollution, also protecting and enhancing the dark skies we've got. And so they had a consultation with, you know, an open consultation about how policies, you know, what the opportunities are to be influenced. And they had a lot of responses to that. And then in December last year, they published this 10-point plan for government. So basically these MPs, this group of MPs, parliamentary group, are saying, right, these are 10 things that national government, you know, could be looking to implement to help protect and enhance dark skies, and also, you know, tackle light pollution. And there are various measures. I mean, I mentioned with, so we do have the National Planning Policy Framework, where it has a policy on, you know, light pollution. Basically, it's to say that light pollution, I can't think of the actual wording off the top of my head, but it's a should, not a must. So it's basically saying to council, you should think about, you know, light pollution and dark skies in your policies that shape your development in your areas, but it's not a must. And so one of the things we found with the Shedding Light survey of local authorities in England in 2014 was that some already had, you know, it struck me at the time that there are individuals within councils who are really passionate about getting light right, and so really advocate for it, you know, to really try to have policies and action that, you know, get light, or have light, better light basically. And there were some councils who had a policy that was new, and a real variability, but you have some councils who are really active on it and some who aren't. And you know, I think it's interesting, you know, watching you know, over the years how a lot of councils are investing in like dimming technology, for example. So that means you can tailor lighting. So you have a, you know, pre and post COVID, have 100% lighting on a Saturday night in the town centre, whereas a residential street you can have 70% lighting. So, you know, having that discretion for lighting. So there's all sorts of things and opportunities. And just mention as well, you touched on statutory nuisance. So many forms of lighting are what's classed as statutory nuisance. So in the same way that noises, but we found, you know, certainly there's a lot that needs to be improved upon with councils, and awareness and action on that. Whereas environmental health people know about noise and how to deal with that as a nuisance. With lighting, we did a survey in 2010, and some people were being told, just fit thicker curtains. So not looking at the solutions to the problem, but you know, just you're being really sensitive, fit the curtains, and that's definitely not the solution. So
I think that's bang on, and that's something we've heard here as well, is that, you know, just get blackout curtains, and I think that I might bring Anna in on that as well, because that you know, we should have these natural cycles of natural daylight and natural nighttime. So I put just ourselves, and we're in the outside of Newport, which isn't too bad with the light pollution, but we've moved bedrooms to get away from a light, and so that we don't have to. You shouldn't really have to have curtains if you don't want to. Privacy is another thing, but you know, just for the natural day and night cycle. So I think that's a really important point, that, you know, your council shouldn't be telling you to change your curtains. They should be making light that is non-intrusive. I don't know what you think, Anna, if you
yeah, absolutely, just echo what you said, really. I mean, I don't like blackout curtains myself. I love looking, you know, being in my bedroom, like looking out at the night and the sky. I'm very lucky. I actually live in Cambridge at the moment, and we can see stars we can see Orion from our bedroom window, because we back onto sort of floodplain and common land by the river. Very few, but I'd hate to have that blacked out, you know. And I think, you know, for people that want to be able to be woken by the light and the soft light of dawn, that shouldn't be taken from them. It's not just about day and night. There's these, you know, very magical times of dusk and dawn that are, you know, actually very important times, and we're denying that to people as well by having this harshness of light all the time.
Absolutely. Well, I will just go back to the questions that we've had. There's a few. There's actually, I think, one for you here, Anna. Following up, is there anyone? I think she means anything we can do inside of our homes beyond light blocking curtains. So that's on that theme, but I think what Jane's asking is, what can we do inside of our homes? So I suppose it's the type of light to choose again.
And I think people quite often ask me that, you know, what's the best kind of light? And as I say, light's very complicated, and people say, oh, I wish there was some sort of app that we could, you know, tell and measure and, you know what's the right sort. And I very much believe you have one already in your own mind and body. And I think, you know, the best way to know what's the right light for you is just to know what feels good. And if your body is flinching, you know, that's probably telling you something, that it's actually reacting physiologically. And on the other, if you feel comfortable, if you feel relaxed, if you want to seduce someone, you don't put a fluorescent light on. You know, we kind of know all this stuff in an intuitive way. And I think that, you know, there is a Goldilocks light for everyone at any given time. That's, you know, it's not too bright, and it's not too dark, and it's not too blue or too red. And you're the one who knows that. So I would say, you know, listen to your own mind and body, and just make sure you've got lighting at home that you feel good in and you feel comfortable.
Just to add to that, one of the words we use when we're trying to describe how we feel is appropriate light for outside as well as indoors is the hygge, the Scandinavian concept. They seem to have got it right with the, you know, the low level comfort and warm toned lighting. So in Irish that word is chole, but it means the same thing. So hygge, warmth. So maybe a descriptor that might be of help. So another question here. So we have Anna again. Did the darkness in the laneways of the city of Edinburgh seem more intense and scary than the darkness outside of your home village?
It should, but I have to confess I was scared of the dark wherever it was.
Well, do you know, on that note, I have a couple of polls set up, and Emma also gave me a couple of questions. So we might just have a look at a poll from the audience, and I have one here. So is that showing at the moment? Yeah. Okay, so let's take a few seconds, and I might also bring in Seamus and Sarah, who are very patiently sitting quietly. If they have any, can give us some feedback maybe on waking up in the darkness of Ballycroy and Achill. And Seamus, where you are in Ballycraha Bay, you have the best of all worlds, really, with the lighting. Any other thoughts based on what you've heard from Emma and Anna?
No, just I suppose we're used to it. I was 10 years in London, and so I'm used to the other side of things as well. It's just nice to go for a walk in the evening when it's not raining, and you can watch all your satellites, and which are becoming more frequent. That's another thing.
That's another story. Yes.
Yeah, and I think I've most of the neighbours and all the kids educated on constellations at this stage. You know, they might be afraid to see me coming.
Not at all. Right, let's have a look at this poll now. We have 86% are not afraid of the dark, and 14% are afraid. So no, it's interesting, and that you know there's different types of dark as you're explaining, Anna and Emma. So thank you for that. We might, I think, did I share the results? There they are. Yeah. Stop sharing. I have another couple of polls, and Emma, you had given us one. Let me just pull up the right question. Now there's one. Is your view of the night sky affected by light pollution? Let's see. And while that's loading up, I might go to a question we have. Jack Ellaby has popped in a question. I quickly realized that dark sky parks and reserve mechanisms is not addressing the major urban area sources of light pollution. What connects the two? Urban visitors going to national parks and areas of outstanding natural beauty, and intrinsically dark rural holiday destinations for tranquility, relaxing, and wow contrast. Visitor accommodation and attractor providers are increasing lighting for health and safety risk assessment reasons. We need a campaign to get visitors to demand dark sky experiences. Any thoughts? So I'll throw that open. So any thoughts on the accommodation providers going towards it, that they are under pressure with health and safety?
I've certainly found it surprisingly difficult to find dark even with a tent and a camper van. That you go to a campsite and there's massive bright signs for the toilets and for the bins that are on all night, and all the lights on the the pathways and the back of the motorhomes. And I had a cottage in East Lothian last summer, and the last summer before, that looked over fields and woodlands, and the neighbours' Christmas lights were on. This is summer holidays in August. The neighbours' Christmas lights came on, blue and flashing all through the night. So yes, I think it's definitely something that people should start to ask for and market as part of the experience.
Yeah, I think so too. And not to want to keep plugging our events this week, but tomorrow we have a dark sky tourism event at 12 noon. So anyone that's interested in talking about lighting and the benefits of getting a dark sky friendly premises into a tourism innovation, perhaps join us then. We can talk more about it. I'm going to launch that. So the poll, let's have a look and see how we got on there. So is your sky view, now that's a very high percentage. Is your view of the night sky affected by light pollution? So 83% yes, and 17% no. So yeah, very interesting statistic there. Thank you folks for taking part in that. I'm just having a quick look, see if there's any other questions. We have a question from Mayo. Who do we contact in County Mayo to ask for intrusive streetlights to be turned off midnight to 6 AM or shielded just to illuminate the pavement and road? That's from Phil McHale. No, we have made contact with County Council. Seamus, do you want to make a comment on that? Or
I don't. It's the local area office be the first place to try.
Yeah, we have, and to be fair, our council here in Mayo is very good to listen to. Obviously, the Dark Skies is a big part of a tourism initiative here, but they are, as Seamus said earlier, they have been very proactive in adapting a national route to 2700 Kelvin, so it's quite warm on the temperature scale. So for lighting, so we're pleased with that, and we have plans for Newport Town to be a dark sky friendly town through lighting initiatives. Whether we can convince local authorities to turn off at midnight until 5 or 6 AM is another question, and I know you have that in the UK. We don't seem to have it here at all. And do you think that's been a very successful measure for you in the UK? I mean, it seems to be in a lot of different county councils.
I mean, I was just going to comment on that, and also about the lighting shields. I got a shield fitted of a street light near my flat, and I mean, so it has helped. But now, since that was done, the council got contractors. When I Google trying to do it, you can't find the information. Even I can't find the information. And I've even seen some councils in the UK are now saying, if you've got concerns about light pollution affecting from streetlights, you have to pay for a shield to be fitted. Oh. And that's another thing that's really interesting. I wonder if more councils could be doing that with the money, with reduction in budget, for example. And the question about streetlight switch-offs, there are some councils, I think Essex County Council here were one of the first ones to try that. And of course, we say as CPRA, obviously that's in consultation with the police and the local community to make sure it's a right fit for the area. But there are some areas around the country that are switching off, but a lot are investing in dimming technology as well. So, we're not saying there shouldn't be any lighting. It's about the right lighting technology used when and where needed as well. So you can have that balance.
Back on, thank you. Anna, there's a question for you. Would you issue your book in an audio, as your voice is amazing for reading? So that's from an anonymous attendee.
Thank you very much. I'll pass it to my publisher.
So she's very right. We might do another little poll, and I'll check the questions again. Sorry, just bear with me. So let's see, what have we got here? No, I've done that one, sorry. Light sources. Now, let's see what the nearest sources of light pollution are. Hopefully that's come up okay. Yeah, people are voting. That's great. And just while that's up, Mary Barrett is asking, is there any data to suggest there is more security issues in the non-lit area? It's the usual comment you get when you raise the issue of lighting. Yeah, you're so right, Mary. So I don't know if anyone would like to comment on that.
I can, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, shedding light, we touched on that. We asked local authorities if there was a link between accidents and crime and lighting, and there wasn't. And then there was also I can't remember what the acronym stands for now, a Lanterns survey of councils that went on for many years looking at changes to lighting in relation to crime and accident data. And again, that was published actually by the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, which is quite interesting that they did the research. But actually analysing that research and finding that there isn't the direct link between lighting and crime or road accidents, but it is, I think, the perception of fear of the dark, to quote Iron Maiden for any metal fans out there, but the fear of the dark that people have of if there are those changes to lighting, or if there isn't lighting, that of course criminals need lighting too as well, to so you might have a torch in a village. I know there's a village in Hempnor in Norfolk where they have a strong lighting policy and they don't have street lightings, and that is just how they are as a village. That's something they've chosen, where they have the choices about having lighting or not as well.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, is the perception of fear, and I think we need to maybe raise that more, that we can address a lot of the lighting that we get. It creates those contrasts that Anna was talking about, and the extra, where it's extra bright, you're going to have the converse effect where it's extra dark, and people who are afraid of the dark are going to be extra afraid of those dark spaces. So
some of the newer streetlight, the very bright streetlights, they create very intense pools of light and then darkness in between, which has major issues for safety and perception of safety, but also for pedestrians and you have what you call pavement ghosts, because if people step out from those dark patches, drivers can't see them. So actually a lower, calmer, sort of more general lighting is actually much safer than very dark than very light, as well as being, you know, problematic for a lot of people's eyesight to have those constant contrasts.
That's it, it's far more consistent. And on that, we do have a comment I saw earlier about car headlights. Let me just see if that's still up there. But I think, you know, that is yes. What do you think can be done about the introduction of LED laser lights in cars, considering the size of the global car manufacturing industry? Anna, do you have any thoughts on the car headlights that we?
I wish I know. I wish I knew what we could do about it. I find it ludicrous that we're actually having this discussion. I did a radio show with Jeremy Vine on this, and the guy, they had a guy from the motor industry sort of supposedly defending them, but the only reason he could come up with that they were a good idea is because they look cool in the new cars. And so many people were phoning in saying, I can't see, you know, and surely the most fundamental thing about being able to drive is being able to see. And I think that's an issue that, you know, again, reaches way wider than people that have particular problems with certain types of light. Just so, I don't remember the actual figures, but the RACs have done surveys on this, and the majority of people are really struggling to see when those lights come at you. So it's a major safety issue.
I think I read that the RAC report that the human eye takes 5 seconds to recover from being blinded by such a bright headlight. So when you're talking about driving conditions, 5 seconds is an awful long time for the.
I think they said it was a football pitch. So you actually drive the length of a football pitch before. Yeah. Again, that depends on the age of your eyes, but before, you know, your eyes are actually functioning normally again. So it's ludicrous and it needs dealing with. And I wish I knew what to do about it.
That's scary. Now I'm just going to share our results of our last poll. So let's see what we came back with. So we have the major source of light pollution, street lighting. I guess that depends whether you're rural or urban. We probably have quite a few urban areas looking at our map earlier. Security lighting, just under 20%. And security lighting, I think, is a growing issue for us here in a rural environment. Well, folks, I'm just conscious of the time now. It's coming up to 8:15, and I know there's still a lot of questions that I haven't gotten to. Just see if there's any major ones. I might just see if folks, if you can have a look in the questions and answer box and maybe all vote for, and by vote you just give a thumbs up to any of the questions in there that you we haven't got to, that you would like to hear asked, and I'll do that. And in the meantime, I'll have a very quick look through the comments. We have Brian Healy with us, who has done a lot of, he's been over to Ireland, and he's very complimentary about both of your talks. Brian has given us some great research information on light pollution and lighting. So thank you, Brian, for those comments. We have a comment there. I think sometimes lighting can be more dangerous in terms of crime. Yeah, that's the point that we were discussing earlier. Lots of people saying thank you and enjoying the evening, and agreeing with Anna about the concerns about accessing dark areas. The night is pierced by lighting in cattle sheds and farmyards. So that is something that comes up in the rural area, that there's an outstanding bright light that has an issue. Okay, now let's see, where did we get to on the voting? So Terry Mosley has asked, and I think it's been partly answered by one of our attendees, but can you make a filter to apply to an existing high temperature LED light to make it effectively a warmer, lower temperature light? Now we have, I don't know if you have any comments on that, but we do have a comment from Terry John, who says probably it's best to replace the LED with one at 2700 or below. If there's any quality to the lamp at all, it should show the Kelvin value. Some brands offer 2400, and I've even seen 2200 and 1900. So that we don't have those yet here, but that would be wonderful to have. And if we could apply a filter, maybe some of our lighting guys could advise us on that. I think the problem with them, though, is the maintenance then afterwards, if filters are applied.
There's also the issue that we talk about streetlights in this measure Kelvin, which is only one issue about light. And there's also issues about glare and intensity and so many other things that need to be addressed.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. We need to take the holistic approach. You're right. Okay. I've one last comment here, and I think I know who this is. A 90-year-old lady from Bangor Eris once said that she wasn't afraid of the dark until she moved to the bright lights of London in the 1940s. And so that's again going back to the contrast between the bright and the very dark shadows that are cast, I think. So folks, we might leave it there. I think we've got some fantastic comments, and what I can do is make sure that Emma and Anna get to see all of your comments. If there is any burning questions that we've missed or not had time to ask, then we can perhaps put them to you, and we could even share some responses on our Facebook page or something like that. But no, I want to thank you both very much for joining us this evening. It's been really enjoying, and your work, both of you, is something that keeps a lot of people around the world actually passionate about for light pollution and for taking action. So I thank you for that. And I have to say a big thank you to Seamus Butler for hosting and for bringing us to Ballycroy this evening, and to Sarah. And we really look forward to going to Achill in the near future and having a dark sky island experience, as well as a visit to Ballycroy. So I think on that note, we might let everyone go for the evening. And just to comment on tomorrow, if that's okay. We do have some fantastic events tomorrow. We have two, in fact. I mentioned already the tourism event, which is at noon tomorrow, and then we have an evening event with Louise Beer, who was from Lumen, and she was with us earlier this week. And Louise will be doing an audio only experience. So for anyone that's signed up to that, you won't get a Zoom link, you will just get a passcode for the audio experience. But no, once again, Emma, Anna, Seamus and Sarah, thank you very much. Thank you for having us, and to everyone that joined us tonight, thank you. And we look forward to seeing you again very soon.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, see you next year.
Stop my